if I'm going to charge athletes and agents, I need to make sure that this is something I would pay for. Because if I'm selling something that I wouldn't use, then this whole product is shot. Like, why are we even starting this? Why am I spending all this time?
Hi, welcome to the Halftime Snacks. My name is Ronena Inbinder. This show features the stories of talented people working in sports. Are you ready? Let's go! Joining us for today's Halftime Snack is a former sales manager who founded a fantastic sponsorship business this year. Joining the show from New York City is an entrepreneur who's passionate about sports, sponsorships, and problem solving. He's the co-founder and CEO of MarketPryce, a platform that will revolutionize the way athletes and brands connect for potential marketing deals. MarketPryce works pretty much like a dating app for brands and athletes. This man accepted my invitation to the show with zero hesitation, and I'm sure we're all going to learn so much from him. Buckle up for today's Halftime Snack with the one and only Jason the Mountain Man Bergman.
I just got chills, man. That was awesome. I'm so happy to be here. I want to record that and just play that before I walk into any room for the rest of my life. That was epic.
Man, I'm happy to host you on the Halftime Snacks. I'm also very, very happy to meet you. We already had a small chat before, but I can already see that you're a great guy, and I'm so excited to have you on the show. And I want to start off our little chat with, I want to build a super crazy supposition. I want to invite you to suppose that you're right now Morgan Freeman. For the next 3 minutes, you're going to be Morgan Freeman. You don't really need to imitate the voice, because Morgan Freeman has the voice of God, so probably it's hard to imitate. But let's say you're Morgan Freeman and you have to narrate the introduction of the movie of Jason Bergman's life. How would it sound like? Give us the 2 to 3 minute intro.
I can give you the script, how it sounds. I'm not going to even attempt to do a Morgan Freeman voice. And I mean, I could keep it specific to a little bit MarketPryce too, because that's what we're here to talk about. For me, I graduated out of college and I got right into sales. I've always been in sales, and I've always been really pitching, whether it's at a corporate company like a Yelp or a small startup. That's something that I've been passionate about, and just being able to communicate with people, working in teams, working in groups, solve, like you said earlier, solve problems for the clients I'm working with. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And the thing about sales is, one, storytelling, obviously, which I hope, we could do a good job here today telling the story of MarketPryce, but problem solving, figuring out what a client is struggling with and being able to provide a solution for it. And that's one thing that it's the reason I created MarketPryce. And to give you the quick background, what I did is I started at a sports marketing company where I was consulting brands, and as big as Anheuser-Busch and Vitamin Shop and really big companies, all the way down to maybe even 1 or 2 person startups, helping them connect with athletes. And I'm a huge sports nerd. We were talking about sports before we got on, and it's something where I take it in a good way. I'm a sports nerd. I know a lot about sports, and I always wanted a career in sports. And I was working with these brands where these companies, they didn't know how to connect with athletes. They didn't know which athletes to connect with. They didn't know how to measure the return or do anything like a marketing campaign. So it made me think of this idea on MarketPryce of, how can I make it easier for brands to discover new athlete ambassadors? And we'll get to the logistics of how it works, but that was the big problem. But I was never a pro athlete myself. I was never an agent. I was never on the other side of the table. So what I did was, like I said, you call me Mountain Man because that's what Bergman means in German. So I love it. But I'm 5'6". I'm not near a pro athlete. I'm not Leo Messi. But one thing I did was the next best thing. I started my own sports marketing agency. So I probably on Instagram directly messaged close to 1,000 athletes, mostly in the NFL and the NBA, just because I know a lot about the NFL and the NBA. I'm a big fan. And I ended up recruiting 12 professional athletes. And I said, I don't want anything exclusive. I have a history in the space in marketing. I'll bring you marketing deals. Just say yes or no, and we could talk through deals. And I did that for about a year and a half. And I saw how hard it was. Again, I envisioned that it would be hard for athletes and agents to close deals, but I never experienced it firsthand. So I was able to see how painful it was to be cold calling brands and cold emailing brands and Instagram and DMing brands. And for the chance that they wanted to work with athletes, and then even if they did want to work with athletes, did they want to work with my guys who were the end of the roster guys? It was so inefficient. And even if a deal closed, it took months, and it was maybe like $500 or something really small, where I was just like, man, this process needs to be easier. So what I did was create MarketPryce, which is the marketplace for athlete marketing, where athletes and agents can sign up in 2 clicks, apply to whichever company that they want to work with. So incredibly easy to see brands who, again, on the other side, they signed up because they specifically want to work with athletes. That's why they're there. So it's a marketplace that's connecting 2 parties who want to meet and who can connect in as easily as 2 clicks.
Wow, that's a great introduction. Morgan Freeman, if you're listening to this, you must be the one narrating the introduction to Jason Bergman's life. That's amazing, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing. And I wonder, what did your wife say when you left your job in the middle of a global pandemic to start MarketPryce? What was that conversation like?
Yeah, so I recently got married. I got married last November, and that's something where, I mean, talk about timing. It was probably the last weddings that had been had, because in March everything sort of closed down. And it's something where, not to get in a whole love podcast, which I would be happy to do. I know she's not going to listen to this though, of just like being able to be there for each other. And, she knew, because again, it's not like I just was driving in a car one day and I thought about this idea. Like that's how Netflix started. It was Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph in a car, and they're like, why don't we ship DVDs? And like they just started the day after. This is a career that I've been in for the last 4 years. So this is something where she's seen every day, and I've done I come back from work and I complain about X, Y, and Z. I'm like, this should be easier, this should be easier. She's a partner in my life where she understood the problem, because this is something we've been living for the last 4 years. So when I presented the problem, that's something where she saw that. And again, I was lucky enough, and it's hard to be lucky in COVID, but we were able to work from home since March. So I was able to work on this on the side, nights, weekends, without being worn out from working 8-hour days in my full-time job. I just quit my job a couple months ago, and to take MarketPryce on full time. So I was able to do so much being able to work from home that, again, I mean, supportive is, to put it lightly, of what kind of she commented. But again, we're trying to make the most out of the situation, and we've been doing that so far.
Yeah, I think that one key element as well is when you decrease the number of things that you're doing, you can actually increase the quality of the output of each of the things that you do. So instead of doing 3 things or 4 things or 2 things probably on a 70%, 80% capacity, you go and do one on a 100% capacity and then move it faster. So I think that timing is a key element in your story. Probably also luck is another key element in your story. And would you say there's any other thing that you, kind of looking backwards to this year, was a very critical point that changed the whole perspective? It was maybe a meeting you had or something you heard about someone. Was any point in this year, well, the podcast is going to be out on 2021, but we're still in 2020 when we're recording this. So is there something on 2020 that you kind of remember as it being a critical point in your year?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think there's a little bit of luck to everything. And, the fact that I had this idea before even COVID hit is something where now with COVID, it gave me extra time to work on it. If I had to point to one thing, and not to be literally the most corny founder of all time, but one thing that really helped me was just going out and like taking that step. And again, I'm so passionate about listening to all this stuff, and I hear it on every podcast, and it's like, oh yeah, enough of it already. I know, just do it. But this is the opportunity to like do it too. If you want to take a risk. So for me, my business model, and I'm sure we can get into it, but on MarketPryce, athletes and agents pay a monthly membership to access all the awesome brands that sign up to MarketPryce. And I did that for a few reasons. One, they're able to see the return that they're getting. You pay $49 a month, you close one deal for $500, you just made 10 times the amount of money you spent. Not many companies can put more money in your pocket than you're spending. But for me, I was like, if I'm going to charge athletes and agents, I need to make sure that this is something I would pay for. Because if I'm selling something that I wouldn't use, then this whole product is shot. Like, why are we even starting this? Why am I spending all this time? So I was like, okay, how can I start to be an athlete? That thought went over quickly in my head. I was like, all right, next best thing. How can I start to be an agent? Should I just interview a ton of agents? But it's not as valuable as me being an agent. So I was like, all right, Instagram is amazing. And Gary Vaynerchuk is always like, Instagram is the best because you can reach out to anyone who you want in literally 2 clicks in a DM. And that's how we met on Twitter. It's amazing. So I just DM'd it was about 40 athletes a day because they block you at some point of like you're sending too many unsolicited messages. But anyway, it's like every single day, like, you have 2 minute spans of the day where I just send out, copy and paste a message. Hey, I would love to meet. Hey, I would love to meet. Hey, I would love to meet. You take enough stabs at it and enough bites of the apple. I ended up recruiting athletes who are unbelievable to work with. I still work with to this day. But just being able to like take the shot and send a cold Instagram DM to a professional athlete and then have phone calls with them, I think that's the thing where, again, if you're like, what's the best thing that kind of happened, is me experiencing being a sports agent. Because now when I'm pitching sports agents, I could say, and it's invaluable in sales, I've been in your shoes. I know how hard this is. And this is one thing I struggled with. Is this something you see? And they're like, yes, of course. Cool. I literally created a solution to help me do this better. And I think you'll see value in it as well. And that's been received incredibly, incredibly well.
I love it, Jason. I want to talk a little bit about MarketPryce. And I'm very curious, since you've been working with sponsorships and the whole market between athletes, brands, and what have you. I want to know if there are 2 to 3 myths that you discovered in sponsorships or in the marketplace of sponsorships that you discovered, and why do you think they're myths? Why do you think they're important? Why do you think the listener should know about them? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. And, I can go on both sides of the marketplace. So for brands, we could start there. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions I saw firsthand was, and it's kind of twofold. One, oh, yeah, I don't sell workout shoes, so athletes wouldn't want to work with me. And, like, that's one things that brands think. And it's just insane to think that, because athletes are normal people too. They just have a lot more followers on social media and a lot more weight when they talk about things. But, for example, one of the early brands who have signed up to MarketPryce is Scholastic. So Scholastic Books. I bet you ask 100 people, can Scholastic work with athletes? They'll all be like, no, that's silly. Just work with parents and kids. Athletes are parents too. Athletes have kids. So if you're able to, and the funny thing is, there's one athlete who I've worked with in the past, Eric Decker, and he was a former NFL player, and like 70% of his followers are female moms, in the ages from 30 to 50. And it was really cool to see. It's also because his wife, Jessie Decker, was on some reality show. Whatever the reason is, he has a lot of followers who are people that I'm sure Scholastic would love to reach, those moms with children. So being able to find athletes that can authentically use your product, and it doesn't even need to be in sports. Like right now, it's the playerman empowerment era has been so, I don't want to say overused, but it's becoming more and more prevalent with athletes starting their own venture firms and athletes starting their own product lines and being able to take really like a strong hold on their marketing and take marketing into their own hands. You're able to connect with brands, again, on MarketPryce in 2 clicks with companies that you can authentically work with, whether it's Scholastic Books, whether it's a mattress company because athletes need better sleep, whether it's even like cool clothes because athletes, like NBA players. There was a freaking award at the NBA show a couple years ago. It was the most fashionable athlete. That has nothing to do with NBA. So it's just really cool to see, athletes off the field and off the court, being able to partner with brands that, again, they can promote it authentically, as long as it's authentic. And again, we could talk all day about that, but that's crucial. I know that's a big one. And then I mean, even on the brand side too, that affiliate marketing is so expensive. And if I'm a brand, it's like, oh, well, I don't have 6 figures to spend on LeBron James. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure you don't. But there's every single other person on the Lakers or any other athlete you could work with. I've been a part of deals where it's even just free product, where brands send, a nice watch for an athlete for a social media shout out. And it's really cool to see that brands, they can work with athletes and still see a really, really big return, whether it's free product or a few $100s, especially with the new NIL laws changing, where college athletes are going to be able to start closing more marketing deals. That's something where if you're not Trevor Lawrence, you're probably doing deals for a few $100s here and there. And that's something that can really change a business for the better and validate a product and validate the business model. So the fact that, oh, athletes aren't for me and they're too expensive anyway is just, you say myth. Like those are the 2 things that come to my head, which is insane. And then a bonus point. athletes, you can't connect with brands if you don't have an agent. That's just silly. That's why I created MarketPryce. We had an athlete literally 2 days ago. She's a track and field athlete. She signed up for an account, created a profile on MarketPryce, applied to 7 different companies. And I checked the timestamps because, I went to the bathroom and I came back and she did all that. It was 4 minutes. And she did all that in 4 minutes. And the fact that athletes, again, it's 4 minutes. It's like not even a commercial break. Like it's crazy. So now with MarketPryce, you're able to connect with, again, whichever company you really want to in just a matter of clicks. So those are the couple myths. I'm sure we talk about myths all day, but those are the 3 big ones that come to mind.
Wow, that's fascinating, Jason. If there's any athletes that are listening that want to be sponsored by the Halftime Snacks podcast, you guys can, of course, reach out to me through MarketPryce. We will be very happy to partner up with some big athletes. But I wanna ask you if you can tell us the different benefits that MarketPryce brings for both athletes and brands, and if you could maybe mention if there's any disadvantage for them for using your platform, or maybe not as a disadvantage, but what would they be letting go of? Probably people might think that on the short term is negative, but on the long term might be a benefit. So is there any disadvantages that you see that athletes or brands could consider through your platform? Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, of course. I'm an optimist, obviously, as a founder. It's hard to be a pessimistic founder. So I'll start with the advantages, which are pretty clear, and we touched on it, where if you are, and let's start with athletes and agents, both, if you want to be able to close marketing deals with brands, and again, I saw this firsthand, which companies are you reaching out to? So which companies are out there that you can work with? Who's the right person within that company that even handles athlete marketing deals or social media deals? And how do you get in touch with them? And then the timing of it all. Like, are they trying to work with athletes now? And are they trying to work with your athletes that you represent, or you specifically as an athlete now? That's something that is just such a time suck, especially for athletes who are training and competing and just being an athlete every single day. They don't have time to go on a website and try to scrape an email address and send them a cold email and follow up 4 different times like an agent would. I don't even know if they'd want to do that. So it's like, and then just for the chance to get like a 5% response rate, which is what I was used to, and any salesperson is, you email 100 people, you get 5 responses, 4 of them are no's, 1 of them wants to talk. And it's like all of that effort for really a minimal return. So that's something where if you're an athlete or an agent, if you're an athlete, let's start there, you want to take marketing into your own hands, you can sign up for an account on MarketPryce, and you're able to, again, like Lavon Idlet, she was the track and field athlete, you can apply to 7 campaigns in a couple clicks and follow up with them directly. You're talking to the right company because you're the one who's basically swiped right on it like a dating app. You applied, so you're interested. You can message them directly, the right person, because that's the person who created the campaign. And again, it's the right time. That's why they have a campaign running today. So that's for an athlete. For an agent, again, I've spoken with a few big agencies, one being CAA, one being Rosenhaus, who's already a client. And they're like, man, we have to get deals for hundreds of clients. And we have to pitch all of our clients. Some are going to get more treatment than others just because some bring in more money than others, obviously. But how can I be able to give all of my athletes a fair share? You add all of your athletes to MarketPryce. You can apply all of them to these campaigns. And again, in a couple of clicks, you're saving so much time, even if you have a sales team dedicated to it. And then for brands, the advantages is, we'll go back to Scholastic, or we'll go back to any company that wants to work with any athlete. For MarketPryce, it's free to sign up. You can use us for free. You can close deals for free. It's literally always time for free, always for free. You can sign up the Halftime Snacks podcast and try to find athlete ambassadors, man. That would be awesome and cool full circle. But you sign up for free and you basically put a billboard on our website. Hey, we're open to working with athletes. Come apply if you're interested. So let's say you're, again, a mattress company and athletes are like, I like sleeping on the floor, I have my own mattress, or whatever it is. Like, you don't want to hear from them. But if there's an athlete who's moving, because athletes move all the time, and they need a new mattress, and it's the perfect timing because the mattress company is creating a campaign today or this week, they're able to apply and find each other, which is really cool. Now, when you mention disadvantages, obviously I'm the most biased person literally in the world to talk about MarketPryce, like starting the entire thing. I really don't see any. I genuinely cannot find any reason. If you're an athlete or an agent, you always want more marketing deals. It's not like the industry I compare it to a lot is the dating app, right? So Tinder and Hinge, and that's something where if I'm married and I go back on Tinder or Hinge, you could get in a lot of freaking trouble, obviously. But if you're an athlete and you do a deal with a headphone company and you do a deal with a water bottle company, but you stay on MarketPryce, you can find other companies to work with in different industries and always keep yourself relevant. So unless you're literally not interested in doing marketing deals or not interested in again, like finding new brands to partner, then you don't use it. But again, I mean, I've worked with tens of thousands of athletes and agents, and all of them want to make more money and more brand partnerships. So, yeah, those are the advantages. And I'm sorry I couldn't give you any disadvantages, but you're asking the wrong person, I think.
Totally. Jason, and I wonder if, is it only limited to athletes, or are you planning on introducing influencers and celebrities in the future on the athlete or personalities tab category as well?
Yeah, so it's 100% yes. We're looking to expand. It's funny. Our starting the name of a company is so freaking hard, and our first name, I loved it, and now looking back, I'm like, that is horrible. And the name of it was Sportfluence, sports and influence. And then I'm like, but we want to expand outside athletes one day. We can't be Sportfluence and have hip hop artists sign up, right? That just doesn't make sense. So we ended up on MarketPryce because we help you find the market price, your market price, when applying to brands. But one thing that, again, I've read and read and read, like as a first-time founder, you obviously are going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to, trip on things that you didn't see ahead of you because this is your first time doing it. The best thing I was able to do is just listen to literally everything I can, read every single article I can on successful businesses. So whether it's Snapchat or Disney or Pixar or the list goes on, Netflix, like what have these founders learned in their path? Because people love writing books about themselves and blog posts and podcasts. There's an immense amount of content. Now it's just about going and finding that content and learning as much as I can. One big lesson I learned is don't stretch yourself too thin too early, especially on a marketplace. So we're trying to enter a market that we know and I know specifically, and I have a ton of contacts in for the last 4 years. Let's be the big fish in the small pond. Let's dominate this market. Let's grow a really, great brand, and then let's expand outside of that. So that's one thing that I'm passionate about. And again, like our campaigns right now, if you're an athlete, and I spoke with an agent this morning who's like, I represent a few international athletes. Do you have international campaigns? And I said, I don't right now. We have national campaigns. We have a couple global ones. But we want to be able to deliver, there's enough brand athletes in the U.S., there's enough brands in the U.S. for us to close a ton of deals and really make a big mark in the space. And then we could expand outside of that because, again, it's a no-brainer for musicians, for actors, for actresses. My little brother's actually an actor out in L.A. And I'm like, dude, just get a big TikTok following and then sign up in a couple years when we expand actors. It's a no-brainer. But yes, that was the long answer to your question. But 100% we want to expand outside athletes one day.
I went over the list of some of the talents, the athletes now that you have signed up for your platform. And a lot of names popped up. Aaron Jones, the running back for the Green Bay Packers. Naheem Hines from the Colts. I'm a Colts fan, so I was excited to see that. I'm also a Nuggets fan, so I saw Monta Morris over there. So I wonder what's the chicken and the egg dilemma. What do you grow first, the athletes or the brands? What's more important? Who's looking for who at the end of the day? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, but you said you're a Nuggets and a Colts fan? That doesn't make sense. Maybe we can save it for another conversation, but that's interesting. I love it. Do you have a quick answer to that to defend yourself? I've never heard that before.
The quickest answer is Allen Iverson and Peyton Manning. When I started watching sports, those were the guys that actually attracted my interest to the sports. But yeah, that's the short answer.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I'm actually a big Phoenix Suns and Philadelphia Eagles fan, so people say that to me all the time. So it's fun to dish back out if I can. I loved Steve Nash growing up, and I was the short white guy with long hair who loved to pass, so that made sense. And I always thought I was Brian Westbrook playing pickup football, hence the Eagles fan. But anyways, to get back to your question, the chicken and egg problem, again, something that I read in insane amounts, going back early in COVID. I remember just like reading a ton of books and podcasts and, one podcast there's two that I really liked. One is the 20-Minute VC by Harry Stebbings. And he is he's just like a super young VC, and he has really smart people on his podcast all the time. And then Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, two amazing podcasts if you're looking for just advice. But I knew that this would be an issue and something that we needed to attack. Also, Lenny's newsletter, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Ronan, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
He's had a huge thread on this, and one thing
You
I thought
pay for the premium version?
not yet. He's still got to pitch me on it because his free stuff is really good. So I don't need
really
it yet,
good,
but
yeah.
I'll get there. But no, I knew that 100% the way that we would solve that is getting brands on the platform, and I compare it to a dating app. So if you are, I don't know your dating situation, we didn't get into this. I know I'm married, but let's say you're dating and you go on a dating app.
I'm single. I'm just
Awesome.
If there's any ladies out there, you can reach out.
Awesome. So I'm sure you've had your fair share of time on Tinder and Hinge and whatever Mexico City used to find dates on an app where you know how it works. Let's say you go on Tinder and there's two girls, you swipe right on both of them, and then that's it. There's no more girls on the app. You're going to be like, screw this sucks, right? Like, and delete the app and never go on it again because you want hundreds of options, even though you only want to find one person. So I knew that I wanted to make brands, those, let's say, theoretical in that example, girls. I wanted to get as many cool brands signing up. Again, it's free to sign up, so it's the easiest pitch of my entire life of, are you interested in even seeing which athletes want to work with you? So you post a campaign on MarketPryce, and I mean, it's been a week and a half, and we already have over 30 companies signed up. You know, some are CBS Sports, one is Bet Rivers, two really big companies. Scholastic is a massive company, but then also we have some really cool supplement companies and watch companies, and like I said, mattress companies, and just really cool companies. You know, we have a company that's offering their own custom bobbleheads for athletes. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. I would want my own custom bobblehead. No one would buy it, but the point is, if I'm an athlete, like, what companies are out there? And if I was reaching out to athletes and agents and we had no companies signed up already, again, it doesn't matter how sexy the Tinder marketing is. You need to know that there's girls on the platform. So that's the biggest thing for me. I've gotten a lot of brands signed up early, and now with athletes and agents, they're able to, on day one, like, again, I'll go back to Levon, apply to 7 campaigns in 4 minutes. Like, you need to have those companies on there, so athletes and agents are going to pay for that, and then they're able to close deals so they can make their money back and then some, and just really stick with us for the long haul.
Yeah, and I also think that brands have nothing really to lose. At the end of the day, you're just putting yourself out there to see if there's any opportunity for you. So, of course, if you are listening and you have a brand, so go right now to MarketPryce and sign up as a brand. Your next sponsorship might be just around the corner.
Nice. I'm going to take that. I'm writing that down. I like that. Thank you, buddy.
You know, Jason, since we're running out of time on this amazing halftime snack packed with so many amazing snacks, I want to ask you a last and personal question, and that is, what was the greatest day of your life, and why do you remember that day to be the greatest day of your life?
Okay, so it's an amazing question, and just so I don't get in trouble, I'm going to give you 3 answers. And I know that's breaking rules, but mute me if you want. But I want to give you 3 answers. So 1, 100% the most exciting day of my life was, up until like a few months ago, was the Eagles winning a Super Bowl. And that, I'll never forget that full day of just like, it is the first Super Bowl that we've won ever as an Eagles fan. I'm a huge Eagles fan, and I was with all my best friends watching, and I almost like spilled red wine all over my friend who hosted us carpet when Brandon Graham sacked Tom Brady, and it was amazing. And my wife is always like, well, what about when we got engaged? And what about when we got married? And I was like, I knew that was going to happen. Like, I knew that we were going to get married. I knew I was going to propose. You didn't. But the Eagles winning a Super Bowl, I had no idea. So that shock value is still like, I mean, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And this year has not gone to plan, obviously, but we'll be back next year in 2021. I'm positive of it. So the Eagles won. I have to say my wedding, because obviously that was unbelievable last November. And that was just, again, unbelievable day. And just with all my best friends, and the fact that we were able to get married before all of this COVID madness happened. And I have a lot of best friends who are now planning a wedding right now, and if anyone's listening planning a wedding, I'm sure they know how big of a headache it is, rescheduling and getting everything together in a COVID world. But then also, as of recently, like, when we, launching MarketPryce is great, and it was unbelievable, and we have an amazing core team working with us, but when we signed our first client, I just got like an email about it from Stripe, and it was like, the $99 payment went through from this guy that I was talking with. And I just was going nuts in my apartment, and it was unbelievable. Like, it was such a good feeling. I can't even explain it. It was something that when you start a business and you actually, you think in your head it's going to work, it's going to work, it's going to work, it's going to work. And then when you actually have someone actually pay you for something and get started on it, it's a feeling I can't even begin to describe. So, that was like a great 30 minutes or so before I just got so tired and wore down after celebrating. And I know we have such a long way ahead of us, but those are the three options that come to mind when you say the best day.
That's a very complete answer. Next time I'm going to ask for 3 days, so just to keep that in mind. And I think that's a great place to wrap today's conversation. Jason, I want to thank you so much for your time, for your insights, for your analysis on sponsorships, the marketplace, MarketPryce, everything that you just told us. There's so many things to learn from you. If you want to learn more, you could reach out to Jason. The links are going to be in the description. Yeah, man, thank you so much for coming. It was great. It was fun, and you're a great guy, and I appreciate it, man. Before you leave, I want to thank you for listening. To hear these or any other halftime snack, check out the full archive on my website, which you can find on the show notes. See you next week!